This episode is a continuation from podcast 162. Please watch part 1 before part 2.
Welcome to the Get a Life podcast. Explore survivor stories. Uncover the hidden truths. Join our X-Called conversations. You matter, and so does your story.
Okay, our next audio is where Bruce Hales heads into politics and socialism, as he calls it.
Yeah, I like this one.
So here's the audio to that.
I take it to myself. I'm very concerned about America, United States of America. Public position there is not easy. Seems to be insurrection against government, fairly widespread. Anybody from the US prepared to say what they think about it?
There has been a rise of socialism that is over against the Christian elements that are apparently leading nationally.
Yes. See, socialism, if pursued too far, finishes up in the communist camp. And that's proved to be a failure, utter failure. Socialism, I give a certain credit to. Parts of it, partly I'm socialist myself. Try and spread the benefits of success and excess. I agree with that. But the rising up against the government, so I think it's a fruit of what was developed through the 4 years of the previous federal government, the weakness in it, abject weakness in the former federal government, so that these elements have developed. I think we need to be fervent about it, we need to be prayerful about it, intelligent. Mostly, of course, our information comes from the press. And the press is, as we well know, is notorious and notoriously unreliable. Brethren are aware of that. As regard to ourselves, so we've had a bit of favourable reporting recently. It's accurate, but it's not a thing I don't think we want to pursue exactly. We don't really want to pursue favourable reporting. That's what you said before about not favouring having a reputation. But leaving that aside, the brethren in America are generally clear about the attack there is on the new government. It's been in, 9 months now, 10 months. See that lawlessness was occurring at the southern border. As far as I was concerned, it was completely unpardonable. I don't know. I don't know what to say about illegal aliens. But if they haven't got their citizenship or their residency confirmed, they're pushing it to try and get recognition. Are they deporting these? They're deporting the troublesome illegal aliens, aren't they?
This audio is really Bruce criticizing socialism while calling himself a partly socialist. This part really stood out to anybody who've lived inside the economic reality of the PBCC. When you hear someone with immense wealth talk about spreading success, it really lands differently.
Yeah, he's drawing attention to the state of the world and, you know, the chaos in the US and fear, full fear mode.
It's kind of rambling, honestly. Like, it's a little bit of rambling. He's just kind of like touching on politics and stuff. But they're like, I remember listening to that one, and I'm just like, yeah, he's just kind of rambling. A guy that really doesn't know much and probably reads Frank News only. I love this little line that he throws in there. I don't think we want to pursue exactly. We don't really want to pursue favorable reporting. Really? Yeah. You've literally been pursuing that for fucking years. What the heck are you talking about not pursuing favorable reporting? You guys literally cry and hire lawyers the second that anything is said negative about you guys. Like,
but the hilarious part, the total oxymoron here is that, like, minutes before he was telling the brethren that, you know, like, the media can't be trusted, like, they're so inaccurate, and it's all just, you know, so inaccurate, and yet now he's relying on the media for his information about the US. Like, I mean, where else is he getting this information?
Straight from the heaven telephone.
Well, I mean, as they said on the podcast, they get it from Sky News. I mean, they were quite open about it. They get this from Rupert Murdoch, the man of sin, right? It's in their own printed ministry, Rupert Murdoch, the man of sin. This is where Bruce gets his information from. I mean, I'm not
He's the only accurate one.
Saying this, right?
He's the only one that tells the truth.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, though, how he talks about, so we've had a bit of favorable reporting recently. It was accurate, but it's I want to tell you, Bruce, that was not favorable reporting. All those members that are walking out right now was due to that reporting, because what was reported was completely opposite of what everybody else was experiencing. So it was not a favorable reporting. Again, you're being ignorant. You're being ignorant to the fact of what your reality is.
I wanted to talk more about his disdain for the way he says illegal aliens, and just remind the brethren that these people are immigrants. These people are desperate immigrants that are actually the most vulnerable people in the world. I mean, why else would you take extreme risk to cross borders illegally if you're not in desperation for your life? Like, most of these people are so desperate for better living conditions. And I mean, I don't know how many times in the Bible Jesus talks, if you want to be religious and talk about what, you know, the Bible says and go by the Bible. Well, Jesus talks about over and over and over about loving your neighbor, about helping the vulnerable, about doing all you can for vulnerable people. These are the most vulnerable people in society, and you want to sit there and talk about them like illegal aliens and excluding them from your country and evicting them. You know, how on earth can you reconcile that with Christianity? I honestly cannot get my head around that.
Yeah. You know what? Bruce is really, he just sounds like an old man that watches the news but doesn't really comprehend.
Yeah.
That's
exactly it.
He has zero spiritual or moral insight left. if he ever did. Higher meaning or purpose isn't even discussed. All he speaks about is the sorry, dirty world of politics and power. Like, he really is not understanding the reality of what he's talking about. But because he has this charismatic, I don't even know if you can call it charismatic. He's just got people so freaking brainwashed. What he says, they just soak up and believe unless they're doing their own work, which, I mean, the people who reach out to us are doing their own research. They understand where he's coming from, and so they can see through it. But for the grassroots brethren, I mean, they look at Bruce Hales as their news channel, which is not accurate at all. Here is the next audio that we're going to discuss.
Been deported so far. That's a very small fraction of the number that came across those 4 years.
It's a start, but isn't it? See, the attack on government agents that are trying to uncover the extent of the illegal aliens, and especially the troublesome ones. That's just a direct attack on the executive arm of government. It's an attack on law and order. See, I think it's an attack really on Christianity, as far as I can see. I think the devil's enraged that the leader there, that man, I think he's had a conversion. You can forget about his connections and relatives and everything. That's not the point. Just the man himself, I think, realised that God saved him from that assassination attempt. And he took it. He accepted it. It would have to be only in his own links with God. But I think we're thankful for it because of the strengthening of Christianity. And that's what's also coming forward is a certain revival.
And like, I would just ask the insiders too, like, just actually dissect a little bit of his language and what he's actually saying, right? Like in the last one there, he said, so God saved him from the assassination attempt. He's talking about Trump, right? And he took it. He accepted it. Okay, let's just break that fucking down. So God intervened and saved Trump from an assassination attempt, and Trump accepted it. What do you mean? You accepted? So there was a time when Trump was like, in between two worlds, and he goes, "No, I'm actually gonna stand in front of the bullet." No, God's like, "Oh, I'm gonna dodge you from the bullet," and he's like, "Oh, I guess, God. Okay, if you insist," and he accepted it. Like his language doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean?
And then he had a conversion. And then a few days later, after Bruce said this, a few days later, he was in a factory doing finger signs to a heckler. Like that sounds like a very deep conversion to me.
Yeah. I think Bruce sees in Donald Trump a kind of a mirror of himself, right? I mean, the kind of the big businessman who's made his way into politics, except of course, Bruce fantasizes about being highly influential in politics, which is why he disastrously tries to intervene in the New Zealand election and, of course, more recently in the Australian election. But he likes this idea of Trump being shot at because in his kind of self-fantasizing mind, he sees himself as some kind of martyr. And this is why whenever he goes to fellowship meetings, everything's locked down. There's anti-sniper patrols, there's armored cars, there's dogs, there's this kind of presidential convoy of big black SUVs. Because he thinks like he's a big target, like the president of the USA, right? I mean, when is he going to get the bulletproof glass screens round him in the meeting room in case someone brings an AK-47 in their pants pocket, right? I mean, it's just his own little fantasy. He would love to be the president, right? He's just ruling over Trump, throwing his weight around and exercising all this. I mean, he talks about it's the executive arm of government. This is Bruce thinking of himself as the executive arm of the PBCC, right? he's not answerable to anyone. He's not answerable to the congregation. He's got these presidential powers. All the power is vested in Bruce personally. He can reach in anywhere with his big hand and just dismiss people or file a massive lawsuit or just kick them out of fellowship or kick them out of the country. I mean, Trump is living Bruce's fantasy, right? But on the scale of the whole USA, what Trump does in the USA, Bruce envisages himself as this is how his position is within the brethren, the executive arm of the government, right?
Yes,
this is
and
really
then
talking about Bruce.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then bringing the insurrection and then comparing the insurrection as against Christianity somehow.
Yeah, yeah. And we won't talk about January the 6th, will we, Bruce?
Right? You know what? And the funny thing is he talks about, they're thankful for it because of the strengthening of he gets a little word in there, the strengthening of Christianity. I'm like, yeah, there's a reason why you said right before the Christianity, because you don't understand Christianity at all. You understand power, greed, control, the being everyone's idol. Like, you don't understand what it means to be humble, meek, respectful, compassionate, kind. I mean, I understand you, Bruce, in a whole other way. I actually had my bubble burst this last couple weeks. I think I was sitting in a very subconscious 1% bubble that I might have hope that you could turn this around. But what I know now, I know that is completely and utterly impossible because you are so evil. There is no way for you to even be able to understand what kindness and compassion on its own looks like if it doesn't benefit you. That is your issue, is you do not know how to put yourself in anybody else's shoes. All you worry about is your shoes and your family's shoes. And I don't even know if that's true. I mean, I'd love to have an interview with the boys.
You're talking about the $3,000 Louis Vuitton driver loafers of Dean's, are you, when you say the family shoes?
Yeah, exactly, right?
I'd like to make a wager that I'll bet $5, so I'm a small gambler, that Bruce Hales starts using the word insurrection to describe anyone talking against him or the leadership.
Yeah,
I mean, guarantee you he's going to start using it.
He could come out with that little patch of gauze on his ear, couldn't he? That would get them excited.
Oh, yeah. He's going to fake assassination or something.
One of Hannah Arendt's core insights was that fear is incredibly useful to power. When people are focused on enemies, chaos, and collapse, they're far less likely to notice what's happening close to home. Right. And so that's what he does. Let's get them so involved in what's happening in the United States that they don't understand what's happening in his own house.
Psst, Epstein.
Right. Right. That's a whole other podcast. Yeah. Here is the next audio that we're going to discuss.
So we want Russia to be weakened. It won't be completed until things change drastically. I think we need to be more fervent in our prayers for the American government and the presidency. It won't happen automatically, because the Lord is over everything, and he's got his timing for the rapture all in hand. And we'll know more about that as the time gets nearer.
I want to jump in right on this one. So let's start out with what he says. So we want Russia to be weakened. It won't be. It won't be completed until things change drastically. What a fucking bunch of insight. Oh my goodness. Russia needs to be weakened, but it won't happen until there's change. Holy shit. What a Gandhi level of fucking insight there. Like, bravo, Bruce. Yeah. I'm serious. Like this is, and they drink this shit up in there? Like, come on.
I mean, it was just an eye-opener to me. I'd never realized that things wouldn't change until they'd changed. I mean, wow. I mean, he needs to get right on the phone to President Trump and give him this amazing piece of advice. I mean, we know that the leaders of the recovery have always been the main advisors to world leaders, right? John Howard and George W. Bush, they had a hotline to John Hales to get their instructions every day. And now Bruce is going to tell Donald Trump that nothing's going to change until it changes. And then, Trump's going to put this into effect and the whole world situation will clear up. So bravo, Bruce. What would we do without you?
We need, and then he goes, we need more fervent in our prayers for the American government and presidency. I don't want to talk about this a little bit too. Isn't it interesting how sometimes the brethren will be like, well, man, we really need to pray for this to happen. And then other times they're like, well, let's just dump a bunch of money at it, right? Like they won't vote because prayers are more powerful. Then why the heck aren't you praying for $261 million? Right? They're way more powerful than votes. Pray for the money. Have faith that God will provide the funds for you instead of asking all your constituents or your members.
I mean, take the whole Australian election interference where they threw like millions of hours of manpower into going out and bullying people at polling booths. So why don't they just pray more fervently? I mean, it would have been cheaper. Prayers are free, Bruce.
Yeah, they could have done a whole day of just praying instead of going and trying to persuade people to vote.
Well,
right?
interestingly, don't trust God anymore.
No.
To appoint the leaders. That's what we were always told. God appointed the leaders. That's why we didn't vote.
Yeah.
Apparently, we don't trust God anymore.
That's true.
We've got to get involved.
That's a very good point. But he has a plan, though, right? So why would you be trying to change his plan? That's weird too, because God's got a.
Well, no, you're interfering. You're interfering with his plan. That's what we were told. If we were voting, we were interfering with the plan.
Well, isn't praying kind of interfering, asking him to change his plan too? I mean, it gets so confusing.
I'm so confused.
Yeah. And then the rapture timing, we'll know more about that as the time gets nearer. And I've said this before, but in the last year I was in the Brethren, we had a business school seminar thing, and they were quoting Bruce Hales as saying, and this was like 2015, he said, we've got 4 more years in business. We've got 4 more years to make money. We've got 2016, 17, 2018, 2019, and then we'll sell our businesses, and then we'll, live on the proceeds till the rapture, and we will be, we can live independently of the world because we'll have all this money to live on, right? And this was, 4 more years of hard work, brethren, takes you all the way to 2019, and then we're done till the rapture. Well, Bruce, that didn't quite happen, did it? Because 2019 came along and COVID came along, which strangely God forgot to tell you about. Perhaps your phone was off the hook. Perhaps you'd got it on, on silent mode, or you're in an aeroplane somewhere. You didn't hear about COVID-19 coming along. But suddenly, there's this opportunity to make lots of money. So Bruce calls up God and says, oh, look, hold it, God, like there's this really massive commercial opportunity come on here. Can we just put the rapture back and just let's have a few more years of making money? Because, I can see my way to making a few billion here. So God says, yeah, Bruce, do your own thing. It's what you always do. And so all the Hales kind of put spirituality on hold and go flat out fleecing the world's governments for COVID stuff.
Hold it there.
No, first, it's all in hand,
No, first we've got to tell all the members don't get involved with the COVID contracts.
Yeah, don't want any competition here.
Oh yeah, we don't you get involved with the COVID contracts? You don't be taking a slice of our pie.
Yeah. They're just figuring how to get all this money up to heaven now. I mean, this is the problem. I think they've got a contract with Elon for that big rocket ship.
Good luck getting it through the eye of the needle.
Yeah.
Oh, gee. Okay. Here's our next audio that we're going to discuss here.
working very hard to bring back Christianity into the country, and I think he's also had over $17 trillion of global investment to try and help the economy and bring back manufacturing. He's doing a lot of good things, but it's taken time, I guess, for the economy to respond. Glad for your help on it.
Yes, well, when it gets to 10 times that, it'll make a difference. And too bad for anybody that's been hurt by the tariffs. I'm not sorry for you. You've been hit by the tariffs a bit, haven't you? Your little business?
Yeah, we have, yeah.
You're not.
We're happy.
Good. That's what I want to hear. It's just a form of tax. And, of course, to shift the centers of manufacturing, and it's working. You've got to make big steps when you want something radical to happen.
Yeah,
we're
it's
back
interesting how he's talking about bringing Christianity back into the country and how Trump is being converted. Because I swear I saw a video of literally Trump saying he doesn't think he's going to heaven. So I'm like, man, you guys are getting your wires crossed, because I'm not even sure Trump really gives a shit about you and your church.
Yeah.
Oh, he does. He's insisting that they bring Christianity back to the country.
Yeah.
That's because all of these
into detail, it looks pretty ugly, doesn't it? I mean, you watch what's happening in the USA, and this horrific video of this woman getting shot in the face, and you think, well, if that's Christianity, wow. I mean, again, we don't want to get into politics on this podcast, but it's not really a great testimony for what a Christian country is supposed to look like, is it?
No, and I don't want to dive. We're not diving into politics. I want to dive into how they're talking about it, because
exactly, yes,
right,
exactly.
This
go ahead,
U.S. speaker, he's answering Bruce, right? And you can see, guys, he's like, he's doing a lot of good things, but it's taken time, I guess, for the economy to respond. Glad for your help on it. What fucking help? Like, right? Thanks, Brucey, for bringing up the topic. Like it's just this infatuation, right? Glad for your help on it. And that shows brainwashing, right? They actually think that Bruce Hales is somehow involved in global politics.
I don't even think it's as deep as that. I think that they're looking to him to give them some reassurance. Like they're so fearful, and he's bringing all this fear into them, and they actually don't really know what the answers are and what to think, and they can't think for themselves because that's dangerous. So they're actually looking to Bruce to give them some guidance on how to and what to think. And if that isn't cultish, I don't know, because
very good point.
And I mean, for him to talk about, well, were you hit by the tariffs? Were your little business, was it hit by the tariffs? And he's like, yeah, we have, yeah.
And we're happy about it.
We're happy about it. What is that? What was that U.S. speaker supposed to say? Like, yes, it's like hit us horribly, and like, no, I'm not happy about it because it's affecting how we're doing business. But no, yeah, we're happy. We're happy we're losing money. We're happy that we've been hit. I'm like, and of course, Bruce Hales comes along. Good. Everybody laughs. That's what I want to hear. Do you see how culty this is? It is literally, when I received the morning after this all went out, obviously with Australia and New Zealand, I got the messages a little bit earlier than the rest of the world. But I woke up the next morning, I had pages and pages and pages of notifications of people like, you are not going to believe what all was just said in the last Zoom meeting. And of course, this is how I got the audio. It's because the insiders were like absolutely appalled at how Bruce did this meeting, the things that he talked about, how he talked about it. And of course, the people who are seeing through that this is 110% a cult is real, are starting to be able to extract where the cult behavior comes from, which is such a beautiful thing to see. Like, these podcasts are really helping them understand where to listen, how to listen. And then instead of, being consumed about maybe what they're not doing, they now have this ability to be able to listen to where the cult patterns are coming through, and it's allowing them to have their eyes wide open in there, which is massive, because people who have their eyes wide open are now helping people who are just starting to open up their eyes, who then are going back to people who are like, hey, have you ever thought of looking at it like this? So there's this massive domino effect happening there of people understanding that the way Bruce Hales talks and the way that he controls the environment, they are now starting to witness and see right through it, which is the biggest break that we have had since Aberdeen, right? So yes, there is an Aberdeen moment happening in there, but it's just not happening the same way. It's Bruce Hales is literally the way he is speaking, what he's talking about, how he presents things, what they've done with his PR campaign is the same thing as J2 Jr. getting into bed with another man's wife and then denying it. So we have the exact same thing happening here. It's just being done through two different storylines, but the same exact outcome is happening. And honestly, I believe that the way that it's going down now in 2025 and 2026 with the amount of people that are seeing through it, I believe that more people will leave than what happened in Aberdeen. Yeah. And people are just stopping going to meeting. So many of them are just like, they're just not going unless they go on Sunday morning or they go at this time. They are picking and choosing just to save face of when they're going. But ultimately, they are seeing through the actual cult behavior that we've been trying to point out over and over and over on this podcast. So Bruce, keep doing it. Keep doing what you're doing, because it's you that is being so ignorant and arrogant with how you are presenting and trying to save face, that you are the one that is throwing your own, people who keep your pocket full out the door. It's not us. You are your own opposer. I was
devastated that they stopped the podcasts. But it sounds like they're starting them again, which is great.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Which is great. Keep doing them. Keep doing them. They're brilliant. They're waking people up at a rate that we've never seen before.
Even faster than we can. Yeah.
Yeah, they're waking up.
So isn't that an absolutely typical brethren thing to happen, that Bruce makes some remark about, not pursuing a reputation, and all the podcasts stop, the music podcast, the food podcast, the not so exclusive podcast, radio silence. Everyone's sitting there in stunned silence, waiting for Bruce to kind of lift his little finger, and then the band starts playing again. I mean, that's so culty, isn't it? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what stopped the podcast. I mean, 5 weeks and the whole band was just sitting there with their instruments in midair, and they were just frozen, waiting for the next instruction from on high, the next time they can wheel Bruce out of rehab and chuck a bucket of cold water out of him so he can actually say something intelligible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I liked, I didn't like it, but his sentence, too bad for anyone hit by the tariffs. I'm not sorry for you. You've been hit by the tariffs, have you? Your little business? I'm sorry. Fuck you. Your little what? Like just that arrogance. If I was talking to anyone in any business setting and they were just like, oh, your little business, I would be like, excuse me, what'd you say? My little what? Like what an asshole way to try and
diminish what you do.
Diminish someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. On that note, I want to, as we're talking about their podcast, I want to read out an email we got from an insider on their last podcast they ended with, which was called Raising Our Voices. And so this is an email received from an insider. Hannah, I'm writing this sadly and disappointed. If you could hear how this comes across, it is genuinely troubling. I don't think it's entirely your fault, especially with Lloyd steering the conversation toward the election and the idea of a cult, but it still needs to be said. You mentioned seeing the Prime Minister on national television. When was that? Why were you watching national television? You said you're a voter. Well, how many times have you voted? You said you didn't see any poor behavior. In that case, I think it's worth taking a closer look at what constitutes antisocial or inappropriate behavior. You are very certain that the PBC is not a cult, and by extension, I assume you believe we were not brainwashed. I'd ask you to pause and consider this quote from a media article, not about the PBCC specifically, but relevant nonetheless. And in quotations, the young people are already physically and intellectually isolated and have no frame of reference for acceptable behavior. End of quote. I honestly can't see how the behavior of the brethren volunteers at polling booths could be viewed as acceptable without that kind of isolation shaping perception. I would also encourage you to read the submissions to the Parliament Inquiry to the Standing Committee on Electoral Matters. These submissions are fact-checked prior to publication. Submission after submission from all over the country recounts the same experience. These people have not collaborated to align their stories. They are sharing their own lived realities. I was struck and slightly saddened listening to the brethren on the podcast being asked what they value most about the PBCC, or in your case, about the leader and his family. What followed was a list of ordinary Christian works and values: kindness, decency, community. These are things many people experience from neighbors, schools, or wider communities every day. They are not unique or extraordinary. Yet, we are conditioned to believe they were. And that belief didn't come from a neutral or open environment. I'm not writing this to attack you, but to ask for a moment of reflection. Perspective is shaped by experience, and experience is shaped by what we are and are not allowed to see. I hope over time there is space for honest consideration of that. That was such a good email that we got.
That was very well said.
Yeah. And then here's another, this was a social media post from an insider. And I think it's very, very relevant that we read this on this podcast. As a married woman from the PBCC, I'd like to share with the world a small sample of teachings from the previous PBCC leader, John Hales, Bruce's father, which have been carried down since the beginning of the PBCC regarding women. In the PBCC, the standard has always been a woman's place is at home or doing things for the assembly or the brethren. There has been no choice. Having even just a job, let alone a career, has always been considered out of their place. Read for yourself. Women up until now have lived their whole lives in the PBCC, the complete opposite to what the PBCC are now trying to portray it has been. Does it feel good to lie on the internet about your women's reality? Do you think it goes unnoticed by women of the PBCC? You see, up until the recent podcast the PBCC have been putting out, the examples of ministry shown below have been the standard rule. However, all the women members just recently found out via the big bad internet, which up until not that long ago we're not even supposed to be looking at, that they can have a career now if they choose. This comes after decades of believing and abiding by the ministry shown below and similar from previous leaders, not thinking there was even a choice. Everyone knows only in the most desperate of circumstances, able to be justified or approved by priest, have married women even been allowed to get even just a basic paying job without suffering repercussions and side sneers and being gossiped about. And remember, even then, these jobs could only be for a brethren company and never a career. BDH, when are you going to minister that your father's ministry that you've supposedly supported isn't relevant anymore and then it can be ignored? Where are the apologies to all the women who stuffed away and denied their desires or working or having a career? Or does everyone just find out on Facebook and YouTube? Does the ministry even matter at all anymore?
That was a good one.
So good. Yeah. And here's another insider response. As a current insider like many, I watch with interest each new not-so-exclusive PBCC podcast as it drops, waiting to see which new lie Lloyd Grimshaw and the podcast guests will attempt to massage into something bearing a passing resemblance or something that could look like truth. So far, they haven't done too well. Watching the latest podcast, we saw the reemergence of their attempt to twist the narrative around how, why, when the PBCC got involved in the Australian election. We could spend hours analyzing Bill Baker's very odd, stilted, and hostage-like delivery. The part about Trove that seems more like a bland, prepackaged solution in search of a problem, which they are trying to fabricate to justify its existence, and all the many other half-truths and tone-deaf lies that goes with any PBCC podcast. However, let's just focus on one aspect of it, the election involvement. Hannah claims that it was only Albanese's press conference on TV calling the PBCC a cult that made her get involved. Many other notable PBCC persons from Dean and Gareth down have also claimed this before. It was just a handful of non-connected PBCC members volunteering of their own volition. Then once Albo called us a cult, we all rose up in righteous indignation as one and swamped the polling booths to support the Liberal to right this injustice. In the PBCC, inconvenient facts and scandals are often very quickly memory hold as we all move on. It works a treat every time. So maybe they don't realize the same doesn't happen for people outside the PBCC or members inside who are awake. The Australian election was held on Saturday, May 3rd. Albo's press conference calling the PBCC a cult was on either the 28th or 29th of April. So this is less than a week before the election that this happened. Are you really trying to sell the fiction that all the PBCC involvement only really kicked off in earnest less than a week before the election? Really? And I just want to interject here that we know that this is a blatant lie because we have people that have come forward. There's audios of this, months of planning that this went on. And so this insider goes on to say this. We all know it was underway many months before this in a big way, set on and run by the very top of the PBCC. And it was obvious to the general public months before Albo's press conference that there was a very big organized effort underway. It was also reported on prior to this. Yet this was all a handful of individuals, and we all jumped in boots all less than a week before the election because Albo called us a name we don't like? Some PBCC and non-PBCC useful idiots say, well, what's wrong with them being involved in politics? Isn't this a good thing? This misses the point totally, and it's a very ignorant statement. The only issue with the PBCC involvement in the 2025 election that all Australians should be concerned about boils down to the following 2 points only. Number one, charitable organizations becoming involved in partisan politics. The PBCC is a registered charity in Australia. In Australia, registered charities, including churches, are not allowed to engage in party politics by law. They are allowed to advocate or campaign for public policy issues that further their stated charitable purpose. Examples of this would be things like PBCC making submissions to a parliamentary inquiry about laws relevant to them or a cause they care about. No issue here. Attempting to educate the public about an issue or cause they care about. No issue here. Highlighting how a proposed law might affect their mission or the general public. No issue here. In all of these examples, it would be clear who was doing the public advocacy and why and what they wanted, and persons involved would be easily identifiable and contactable. What charities and churches are not allowed to do by law, however, is they cannot promote or oppose a political party or candidate for public office, as this would be a disqualifying purpose or activity and mean the organization cannot be a registered charity. Examples of this activity would be if the charity or church endorsed a political party or candidate, not allowed, donated to a political party or campaign, not allowed, distributes how to vote material, not allowed, organize or run election campaigning on behalf of the party or candidate, not allowed, ask supporters to vote for or against a specific party or candidate, not allowed. Now you be honest and ask yourself, was what the PBCC did the former or the latter? Of course, we all know the answer. Even Lloyd Grimshaw and Dean and Charles know. Now they will say it wasn't the church. The church had nothing to do with it. which is true in the sense that no church property was used. No church letterheads were used. There wasn't announcements in church meetings about it, etc. But they are relying on the general public and authorities' lack of knowledge about how the PBCC works in order for this justification to fly. Because while the PBCC meets all the markers of a cult, it's quite a bit different to many run-of-the-mill cults in a way that an uneducated outside eye looking in would be hoodwinked by. Bruce Hales is the PBCC. As he hides behind a wall of intermediaries designed to keep him at arm's length and not easily connected to PBCC activities, it is his sons Gareth, Dean, and Charles specifically that run things, and what they say carries the King's royal seal of approval, so the boys as well are the PBCC. You do not need to use official church channels to organize a massive church-wide effort and utilize the resources of church. All you need is for Gareth, Dean, or Charles to make a phone call to a group of loyal enforcers and say this is what is happening and how you will do it. They will then implement this action and it filters on down through the pyramid structure, approved from the top or golden advice, or set on by our brother, is all that's needed to make people fall in line. And then you have a gigantic organized effort utilizing all the resources of the PBCC church, members' time, labor, money, etc., into one directed end. You already have all the organization and command structures set up. Just repurpose existing RRT infrastructure or teams, for example, and build on these. However, in true Hales fashion, this is done in an oblique and hazy manner that on the surface looks innocuous and nothing to see here, but under the surface is illegal and sinister and always controlled by and serves their ends. Like the tax stuff and everything else about them, they are relying on the small gray areas at the edge of law to play in, and it's a toss-up if it's illegal or not, as this depends if the authorities can connect the dots. They're giant spider web or not, and usually they will get away with it. But it's always highly unethical, immoral, and deceitful. If it were proven that they did organize and utilize the church resources for this, then it opens up the PBCC to lose its charitable status. And this, my friends, is why they cannot tell the truth about what happened in the 2025 election, even though we all know exactly who set it on and how it worked. Any non-PBCC useful idiots who still thinks there is nothing wrong with this, I would ask you, would you be happy to find out in the next election that the Catholic or Anglican Church or the Hillsong Church or an Islamic organization secretly instructs all of its members to volunteer en masse for a specific party and directs its wealthy members to donate to a specific party in order to swing the election to a party they want in power for unspecified reasons, without telling the public who they are, why they are doing it, and attempting to hide it? Oh, and also, they're a registered charity banned by law from doing this. Would you be happy with this? The truth is, this will never happen because neither the Catholics, Anglicans, or any other mainstream church can click their fingers and get all members to fall in line in unison and do whatever they are told without thinking, because they aren't a high control group or a cult. 2, the quid pro quo. This brings us to the next point. The PBCC reacts very allergically to any suggestion that there was a quid pro quo expected in this deal. This tells us there was one. This doesn't pass the basic smell test. The Hales and PBCC system never do anything of this scale or expense without the expectation of something very big in return. Hell, they even make the ordinary members pay for everything they can, down to the travel expenses and private jet hire for the royal entourage when BDH graces a locality with his presence at no advance notice. You really think they did all of this just because we were worried about rising grocery and electricity bills? Despite what Lloyd Grimshaw says, the exclusive brethren, PBCC, have never been allowed to vote or partake in party politics or the politic process of any kind. Never. It has always been totally verboten. Brethren ministry from JND's time to current is littered with statements against voting, involvement in politics, and so on. For those who don't know, ministry supersedes scripture in the PBCC. So whatever is said in ministry is the law and rule. Questioning this would result in excommunication. Charles claims he has never been asked if he has voted after an election, so that's proof voting isn't banned. The reason no brethren have been asked after any election if they voted or not is because it's something we all know is totally banned. So unless someone saw you voting or you told someone you voted, of course you would never be asked if you did. So there is this gross hypocrisy angle to this, where overnight a centuries-old foundational principle is overthrown. Not in public, no announcement in the church or via official channels, but just we are now volunteering for the libs and Charles said we should vote or things like that. Remember, the Hales are the PBCC, so any statement they make in any setting is an update to doctrine. However, while we as insiders may be pissed off by this, hypocrisy is not a crime and it's not against the law, so they haven't broken any laws here. What the general public should be more concerned about is if you have this closed group with giant financial and real estate interests that also now has issues with the tax department, and that for 200 plus years have enforced its doctrine over its members with an iron rod, and one of those specific rules being no voting, no involvement in politics, and all of a sudden overnight it changes this rule and volunteers en masse in a change of such gravity that it will destabilize the position inside, which has happened. What possible reason could motivate the church leaders, Haleses, to roll the dice on such a high risk, reckless endeavor to make the payoff worth it in the event of it succeeding? If they do this and it doesn't work, the following happens. They have attracted massive unfavorable public attention. The public attention will draw more media and research to look into them and start shining lights in dark corners. Snowball effect. They put a target on their backs from the parties they opposed who are now in power. They run the risk of losing their charitable status if people figure out what happened. They destabilize the members internally by such a radical rule change. Once one massive rule like this changed, people inside start thinking, what will they change next? Why bother with any of the other rules if they might change in the future too? Control starts weakening, and any attempts to tighten it just makes more people wake up. All the possible outcome above are kryptonite to the Hales' control of the PBCC. You would not even want to risk one of them occurring, let alone all 7, as has happened now. But if the election interference works, is undetected and successful, then none of this matters because your side gets in. You get the payoff from them, which is what you really want, and all your members will think this is Joseph Leffel genius, and it will strengthen your control over them. The point is, unless there's a massive payoff waiting for them, no high control group or cult would ever risk what they did. Fortunately, it backfired on them in a big way and has pushed them onto the public radar, which to counter they are now doing all this ridiculous PR crap that is inauthentic and counterproductive and very expensive. As a member of the general public, you should be asking yourself, what is it that the Liberal Party promised this group or intimated would be given to them that was so great and so attractive that they were prepared to risk all this in order to obtain it? If you care about your democracy not being subverted, then you need to get the answer to this. If you are a Liberal or center-right voter in Australia, you also need to be asking the Liberal Party, what on earth were they thinking getting into bed with and handing so much control over to an organization like this? And what did they promise them? Because it resulted in an epic loss and the total decimation of the Liberal Party in Australia and has left the right of centre cause prostrate on the floor, riven with divisions and not likely to recover anytime soon. It's unbelievable there hasn't been more pressure to get these answers, probably because the Libs and centre-right voters in Australia don't yet fully understand the extent to which they have been played. Also, some free advice to Lloyd, Dean, Charles, and co. If in every podcast you have to ask the guest to tell how amazing the Hales family and BDH is, not only does this look a bit weird, but when you've been telling us that it's not a cult, there is no hierarchy, and the Hales family doesn't control everything, why do you have to keep eliciting stories about how amazing and kind they are? If they weren't as prominent and controlling as you say, wouldn't you be able to talk about other notable families and how nice they are as well? In the latest podcast, Hannah also admits to mention she is related to the Hales. Essentially, this story is just of relatives helping out a relative in a time of need. Very normal, happens everywhere. However, leave this detail out and it allows you to portray something that is disingenuous, light, like usual. that was one of the most well thought out and presented analogies of everything that is happening inside the PBCC right now. And I want to remind the listeners and viewers that was an insider. This is how thoroughly, exactly. This is how thoroughly they're seeing through things right now. I mean, this is one out of many, many people who are seeing it like that inside there.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I think
well
this
written.
is stunning. This is just shows how far things have changed over the last few years, that we went from having maybe one or two very scared insiders occasionally reaching out to now we just get reams of insight. And I mean, this is an insider who's fully seen through it. I mean, there are some who are kind of see through a little bit and are hesitant about others, but this is just crystal clear, damning evidence right from inside.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the end of the Hales dynasty. They can't survive it when insiders have this level of insight and knowledge.
It's cutting through. That's completely cutting through the cognitive dissonance there. Just slicing it through.
Yeah. And I do want to remind people that we are I am personally so backed up in emails, text messages, all that kind of stuff, that if you have sent something to me that's urgent and I haven't responded to, please email me again and ask me for my WhatsApp, ask me for my number, because I'm able to keep up with WhatsApp a little bit more than my emails. The emails are, I've got over 2,000 emails in my personal email folder, and I just simply can't get through them. So if it is something urgent and you're an insider, reach out to me and ask me for my number, and we'll get hooked up on WhatsApp. And that's easier for me to take care of things than trying to sift through all of these emails. I just can't get through them. We have something that was given to us by someone who has left the Brethren, and it is a very hard letter to read out. We are going to read it out. I want to give you a disclaimer before we do it. It does include sexual abuse, but this person is actually a letter. It's very much directed towards Bruce and a call to action from Bruce. And it is my next thing that I want to read out here, and then we'll wrap up this podcast. Okay, so this is a letter that we received from a survivor of the PBCC. So it's labeled content warning, references to sexual abuse, domestic violence, and suicide. Dear Bruce, I'm writing in response to your son's recent statement on the Plymouth Brethren podcast, in which they claim that the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, PBCC, provides support for those who leave. Given this declaration, and since I've not yet seen any such support, I'm giving you an opportunity to demonstrate that commitment in practice. Here's why. From a young age, I endured repeated sexual abuse for over 2 years between the ages of 5 and 7. Given the PBCC's history of secrecy and failure to educate their children on what constitutes assault, this went undetected until my abuser grew a conscience. Later on in my early teens, a PBCC member who was in their 20s provided me with alcohol until I was drunk and then sexually assaulted me. When I reported this to my local priest the morning after it occurred, even though I was unable to consent given my age and level of intoxication, I was convinced by my priest to take the blame for the abuse and told to put it right with yourself, the Lord, and the brethren. I was then forced to continue to live in close community with my abuser for the next 10 years. From childhood until the age of 25, I was subjected to regular, violent physical abuse at the hands of my father at least once a week. At school, I was bullied and beaten by PBCC children and at the PBCC meetings. I was repeatedly beaten by peers when no adult was present. During this time, I asked for help on many occasions, speaking up about my father's violence and the bullying, yet nothing was done. This lifelong environment of fear, control, and violence has left profound psychological scars that continue to affect me to this day. In my 20s, the PBCC subjected me to unlawful incarceration and deprivation of liberty. The PBCC's priest, under your directive, used my family to blackmail me into living in complete isolation in a small studio apartment for over a year and a half, simply because I broke your travel ban. During this period, the PBCC's priest, again under your direction, restricted and monitored my movements, making sure I had no social support, no meaningful contact with my family, and no ability to rebuild my life. Every effort I made to mitigate this unlawful situation to safeguard myself against suicidality, your PBCC priests would blackmail me into conforming with threats of additional time in isolation. My mental health and sense of self were shattered. This type of coercive control and enforced isolation is recognized under criminal law as unlawful incarceration, a serious violation which frequently carries compensation of approximately 375,000 Australian dollars per year, not including loss of income or opportunity. After leaving the PBCC, I faced enforced excommunication. Despite your son's statements claiming the PBCC does not force families to shun former members, my family was compelled to sever contact with me. The only way I can see my family now is if I turn up on their doorstep when I know that they are home. When I have done this in the past, my mother hides me in the garage, terrified of reprisals from the PBCC if she is seen talking to me. This level of enforced separation has been devastating for my recovery and has left me isolated and estranged from the people who should have been my natural support network. The cumulative impact of these experiences has been catastrophic. I have spent years and substantial funds attempting to recover my mental health. 2 years ago, I was formally diagnosed with complex PTSD, and since then, have undertaken months of intensive treatment costing over $30,000. Yet with minimal relief, medications have often worsened my symptoms, which include nausea, dizziness, tremors, and persistent nightmares that replay or combine the traumatic experiences from my time within the PBCC. As a result, my sleep remains severely disrupted, all resulting in constant upheaval of my basic daily functioning. The PBCC's action, also known as your own authority, have directly caused almost every difficulty in my life. My career, financial stability, relationships, mental health, and sense of self have all but been destroyed. Nothing can undo the trauma I've endured, but your organization has an opportunity to take tangible responsibility as per your son's proclamation. Therefore, I am seeking compensation for, number one, the period of unlawful incarceration, reflecting the years I was forced by you into isolation and deprived of my liberty. 2, the cost of therapy and treatment, which I would not have needed had your organization provided the care and protection it claimed it had in abundance. 3, recognition of the long-term damage caused by your enforced excommunication and isolation, which has left me estranged from my family. If your organization genuinely wishes to support former members as your sons have publicly proclaimed, then this is the moment to demonstrate accountability and compassion. I am not asking for charity. I am asking for acknowledgement of the significant harm caused and appropriate redress. The actions of your organization have destroyed almost every aspect of my life, not to mention the countless lives of the former and current PBCC members. Please stop hurting people and instead make first steps towards recognition and responsibility for your devastating actions. I won't hold my breath for any changes, as I believe you've already shown us all what kind of man you are. Still, if you're prepared to surprise us and take this step, you may contact me directly at mcleanjae89@gmail.com. I will repeat that again. mcleanjae89@gmail.com. Now, this letter is literally what hundreds and hundreds of every survivor of the exclusive brethren and the PBCC are suffering from. I relate to absolutely everything that he says inside there. I had to dig up my own personal story 3 years ago, and you don't just move on from it. You guys see me doing these podcasts, but what I do in behind these podcasts is why I have 2,000 emails in my email right now, is because I also am doing my own healing. And just like this ex-member says, it is in every part of your day-to-day life. You can go on and pretend none of this happened, but it catches up to you. It catches up to you. There is no pretending this doesn't exist. So then you have to go into and have a very deep, microscopic view of what you endured, and to be able to sit with that inside your body, and what your body went through is absolutely horrific, trying to bring it up to the surface. Complex PTSD is one of the hardest things to get through because everything is coupled together. We are going to do a podcast to help those inside navigate what sexual abuse looks like, what domestic violence looks like, what childhood sexual abuse looks like, what grooming looks like, that is in the making right now. But what has landed on my lap in regards to Bruce Hales and his hands and a lot of things has made me realize that this man is incapable of being able to offer what we actually need. Because the system that they are sitting in is a cult. It is a cult that is set up to be able to hold pedophiles in protection. There is nothing inside Bruce Hales' system that is going to allow any of us get the resolution we are looking for. We as a group have to try and find ways to support one another, therapies that have worked. Yes, we want justice. I want justice, you guys, so fucking bad. But after I have heard what I have heard, I know that that justice is not going to come through Bruce Hales and any of his minions. I had an open letter to BDH written up that was going out to everybody. I'm not doing it any longer because I'm not going to waste my breath and my time and energy asking Bruce Hales for compensation and I don't mean financial compensation. I'm talking compensation mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those things that have affected us since either we have decided to pick up our trauma and look at it, or since the day we have left. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that this letter is a carbon copy of everybody who comes our way with their issues. And yes, would it be nice for Bruce Hales to actually be a Christian the way he says he's a Christian? Because a Christian and a mainstream Christian church would pick up this letter and all of the emails everybody has sent forward, all of the podcasts everybody has done, he would pick it up and he would be in absolute tears with what has happened to us. And he would start writing a list. This person, he would start taking accountability and helping everybody that's protecting these pedophiles and these abusers. He would sit down with everybody and be like, how can we fix this? How can we amend our mistakes? Because we're not
can't do that.
Exactly.
They don't have the ability.
Exactly. Bruce Hales does not have the capacity in his soul to be able to offer what we are asking. Okay,
Might I suggest the reason that he can't have that compassion is because he is at the top of this and he knows about it and he's guilty?
Well, of course, but mentally, right? Someone with, a narcissistic personality is sort of like that, which I'm suspecting he may, I'm alluding, whatever. Then they don't really have the capacity to feel empathy really for others, right? Like it's just a way that the brain just doesn't recognize the empathy and stuff in others. So, and the feeling. So I don't think he has the capacity for that.
I'm going to read out to you guys what a narcissist is and the traits of a narcissist. And you sit with this and you tell me if this is what Bruce is.
The definition of a narcissist is a person who has an excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. Narcissists who think the world revolves around them is what is in quotation in the Oxford Dictionary. Traits commonly seen in a male narcissist. And this is behavior patterns, not a clinical diagnosis. Number 1, grandiose self-image. He believes he is exceptional, superior, or uniquely gifted, even when his achievements don't match the claim. Number 2, entitlement. He expects special treatment. Rules are for other people. 3, lack of empathy. He struggles or refuses to genuinely care about how his behavior affects others. 4, chronic need for admiration. He craves praise, loyalty, and validation. Criticisms feel like a personal attack. 5, fragile ego beneath the confidence. What looks like strength is often insecurity. Even small challenges can trigger rage or retaliation. 6. Gaslighting. He rewrites events, denies obvious facts, or tells you you're too sensitive to avoid accountability. Number 7. Blame shifting. Nothing is ever his fault. If something goes wrong, someone else caused it. Number 8. Control tactics. He may isolate, intimidate, triangulate, or subtly undermine to stay dominant. 9. Image management. Public persona. Charming, generous, spiritual, moral. Private behavior. Dismissive, cruel, manipulative. Number 10. Exploitative relationships. People are useful until they aren't. 11. Rage when exposed. When challenged publicly, he may escalate legally, socially, or emotionally to silence opposition. 12. Victim narrative. If confronted, he reframes himself as the one being attacked or persecuted.
They hold themselves elite because of their doctrine of separation, right? And the doctrine of separation is that they separate themselves from evil. But what we're actually discovering is that they refuse to separate themselves from evil. They separate from anybody. They expel and separate anybody that actually mentions the evil or wants to talk about the evil or brings up the actual evil. And then they refuse to actually deal with the perpetrators. So actually their doctrine of separation is such a load of crap because they are refusing to do anything about the evil. They are still in communion with evil, and they get rid of anybody that wants to speak about it.
Absolutely.
I would be speaking to the insiders and say, okay, it's pretty easy to understand that abusing a child is wrong, right? I think even the vast majority of members in the church would understand sexually abusing or physically abusing a child is wrong. It's evil. It's a crime. It's absolutely terrible. One of the worst crimes, right? Why would it make sense to excommunicate a victim, right? It doesn't. Why would you go through the rest of your life not speaking to your sibling or your son or daughter after they've told you that they were abused sexually by somebody in the church or in the cult or even outside? Why would you excommunicate them? You know that what happened to them wasn't their fault. You know it wasn't their fault. You know what happened to them was a crime and it was wrong and it was evil. But yet your organization chooses to never speak to that victim again, right? You excommunicate them and kick them out of your cult and community, your life, and your family after they're abused. Think about that. Think about why your organization would choose to excommunicate victims.
And for that reason, like I've heard of so many stories of insiders who are victims, but they are terrified to come forward with the reality of their stories because they know that they will be punished. Yeah. They are going to be punished for speaking about it. Now, on what planet is that okay for the victims coming forward about their abuse as children? This is child sex abuse that we're talking about. Victims of child sex abuse. What planet is it okay to then punish the victim?
Yeah. But this is how they work. This is how they work their stuff. You know what? I'm going to go to a post that was on our Get a Life Facebook page that is very similar to what this email what this email says, because people are going to be like, oh, well, this is probably a couple of years ago and it's not current anymore. That's what the Hales supporters will come back and trolls will say to me. So here, this was posted January 18th. Not sure. This is by another ex-member. Not sure what to do about this. A close friend of mine is currently living alone in a brethren's safe house, recovering from a nervous breakdown, emotionally and mentally fragile. Isolated from family and friends, with the only exception being his oldest son. A cooked meal is delivered to him every evening, struggling with depression and alcohol addiction. currently unemployed and financially bankrupt thanks to the unrelenting pressure of the Hales-led money system. My immediate concern is that the social isolation, the coercive mind control, and the emotional and psychological blackmail may finish him off. This is happening right now. And I mean, this is one of many. I mean, I know of somebody else who's living somewhere on his parents' land and doesn't get to have much to do with them. So when they come onto their podcast and say this shit doesn't exist, it 110% does. I think I'm so tired of their lies. The insiders are so tired of the lies. And Bruce, this is what is going to be the demise of your cult. This is what's going to bring it down. It is your own lies. Truth, it holds water. It is a foundation to stand on. When you start lying about shit, that's when things start coming down. So don't be sitting there and blaming this on opposers and negative media press. It is your own narcissistic, egotistical tendencies that is creating the grave you're finding yourself in.
Boom.
Yeah. And with that, we'll wrap up this podcast.
Yeah, that was a mic drop ending right there.
I want to thank you, Lane. Thank you, Cassie. And thank you to Richard, who had to exit here before. I appreciate you all coming on and sharing your insights into this absolutely insane time within the PBCC. And until next time, much love to everyone. Hang in there. You got this. We're here with you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
How can you support Get a Life podcast? We are currently raising funds for this legal lawsuit against Cheryl and the Get a Life podcast. Please check out the GoFundMe link in the description of this episode. Thank you to everyone who has donated. You can donate internationally via PayPal at www.paypal.me/getalifepodcast. Or you can scan the QR code on your screen that takes you to our GoFundMe. Every donation helps keep this project alive. If you are in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. You can find all our Get a Life merchandise on our website at www.getalife.net. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.